when you let kids play outside, it helps their brains function better. So it helps their cognition and it helps their emotional state. It helps them physically. Here's this thing that's, for the most part, it's very low cost and you just get so much out of it.
You're listening to the Naturally Noel Show, brought to you by Noel's Naturals, all natural products that really work. And now, please welcome entrepreneur, wife, homeschooling mom of 4, and founder of the Noel's Naturals brand of products, your host, Noel Talley.
Well, welcome to the show today. I am so thrilled today to have Ginny from 1,000 Hours Outside with us. Welcome to the show today.
I'm so thrilled to be here, Noelle. So glad we've connected.
I know. So I met you in Florida in my sunny area of the country at the Florida Parent Educators Association conference and went
Yeah.
to all of your workshops and was just
Aww.
so excited by everything that I learned. And it was such a great resource for me that weekend.
Oh, that's so sweet of you. That conference is so fun.
It is fun. It's huge.
It's huge. We're gonna be back this year, and I'm really excited. And our friends
Oh,
are coming. This guy Dustin Lally, he is the lead singer of this band Sanctus Real, and
yes.
so him and his wife are doing a concert. So it's gonna be a really cool conference this year. We're thrilled
Yes.
about coming back.
Yeah, it's always a good time. I grew up going to that conference because I was homeschooled. So I went as a kid and went
Oh,
to seminars and would tell my mom, oh, we got to get this book or we got to do this curriculum. And
oh, that's really, really special and really cool when life comes full circle like that. How neat.
it is really cool. I think this year our oldest is 8. So I think this will be the first year I bring him with me and let him kind of have fun in the expo hall.
Oh.
And it's going to
Some
be
of our
cool.
some of our favorite people are the Wild brothers. I don't know if you follow them, but they're a missionary family in Papua New Guinea, and they do all this. It's these 4 brothers, and they do all these really cool videos, and they these brothers on their adventures, and they were there last year. So our kids, it was like meeting celebrities. They'd seen all these videos, and so I
I
just
love it.
asked if they're coming back, and I think they are. I bet your 8-year-old would love them.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. We'll have to check it out. So
Yes.
tell me how 1,000 Hours Outside came to be. What is it all about?
It was just birthed out of really my own personal experience. I've been writing since 2013, so getting close to 10 years now, but have been living a lifestyle that includes, in respect to sort of the average, that includes a massive amount of outdoor time. I know some people do more, um, but have been living that way since 2011, so over a decade. And we had kids right in a row. They were like 3 under 3, and that was hard. I
Yes.
Motherhood to me was like this smack in the face. I felt like up until becoming a mom, I was like fairly competent. And then, and all of a sudden I wasn't. So our first 2 kids are 15 months apart, and then the next 2 are 17 months apart. And actually our gaps just continued to get larger because I was like, that was really hard. I'm not gonna do that again. But when they were real young, I just felt every day like I was failing. There was so many needs and I could not keep up. And so I sort of went from, like my last day of work was on a Friday, and then I went in to get induced on a Monday. Everything started from a disaster too. Like I was supposed to be at a birth center, and then I ended up getting induced. And so the whole thing started off in this sort of chaotic way. And so I floundered for several years, really. My husband had a long commute. He was gone for 10 plus hours a day. And I had these little ones at home that just had a lot of needs. And so I didn't really know what to do with them, Noelle. Like, as silly as that sounds, I don't know. Like, you have these birth plans, and, I had some sort of a schedule in my mind, but the kids didn't want to do the schedule. So I was drowning and I didn't really know what to do. So we enrolled in a bunch of things because that's what I saw other people doing. And it seemed like the right thing to do, which is like, this music class and this library program and, the swim and all of the different things. And those were awful too. They were great programs, they were great people, but to pack up one child or two children or three children and or more, and get them in a vehicle is like a massive feat. You have to have all the things and the different size diapers and and
Yeah.
quite literally, I wouldn't even drink because I'm like, what if I had to go to the bathroom? Like what am I gonna do? I was like panicked. I'm like, if I get to the library and I have to go to the bathroom, what am I gonna do with these three small children? So anyway, that was like our first couple years of life, and I had a friend. We did MOPS, the mothers of preschool
Yes,
program, and
for sure.
so it was another program we did, which that was I liked that because you dropped your kids off in this nursery, but then they always brought me my kids back because they were always crying. So, but still, it was a nice way to, a couple times a month be with other moms and commiserate and learn and that kind of thing, and one, just like by happenstance, by grace, I happened to be at a table with this mom. She was planning to homeschool, and we were planning to homeschool, and she was just a year ahead. And she said one day at MOP, she said, Charlotte Mason says kids should be outside for 4 to 6 hours a day. And I was like, "Oh, okay." Like, I don't know,
Who
it
is
sounded,
Charlotte
like,
Mason?
really absurd to me. I didn't ask who Charlotte Mason was. I should have because I learned years later that Charlotte
Yeah,
Mason was, like, from the 1800s.
yeah.
So, I didn't know. I'm like, I don't know, a lot of people are named Charlotte these days, so I just figured it was someone in the know, and it's Charlotte Mason stuff has stood the test of time, so much of it, but, at that time, I didn't know who Charlotte Mason was, and so this friend of mine, she was like, "Well, we should try it. 4 hours." I'm thinking, come on, what are these kids gonna do? This is just outlandish. I'm thinking like Play-Doh lasts 12 minutes, or I try and come up with these activities for our kids and they're short-lived. And I couldn't comprehend what we were gonna do for 4 hours. But you're trying to make friends when you've got those little kids. I played along and we went to this park that didn't have a play structure or anything. It was just an open field and there was a creek and a little bridge and some ducks and things. And she said, we're going to meet at 9 in the morning and stay till 1 in the afternoon, bring a picnic lunch and a picnic blanket. And so I was like, this is going to crash and burn. That's what I was thinking. Uh, but then it turned out to be just a turning point for my entire life, Noelle.
Wow,
I had such a good day, and I hadn't had a good day yet. I had been a mom for 3 years, and I had not yet had a good day, and so
wow.
we went and spread out our picnic blankets, and the kids just played. She had 2, preschool toddler age, and so did I, and then we each had a babe in arms, and, and the kids just I don't know what they did, Noelle. They, like, ran around and chased things and chased each other and threw rocks in the creek and you know, came back and forth and grabbed food and all of a sudden it was 1 o'clock and I'd had some conversation. I'd been able to sort of catch my breath and then all the kids were happy and they fell asleep in the car on the way home, which was a miracle. And then all of a sudden it was like 3 o'clock, like whereas beforehand I was like completely toast by 10:30 in the morning, counting down the 7 hours till my husband got home. All of a sudden it's 3 o'clock. It's getting closer to dinner. Everyone's just, happy. And
Yeah,
so that one day completely changed my entire world as a mom. And, so we immediately just turned course and sort of stopped doing all of the busy and a couple days a week on the best weather days, we'd try and meet up with a small group of friends. It was our MOPS friends and do these outside things, and they were very simple, nothing crazy cool, just being out. And so it was just for me at the beginning, I was just trying to like survive. But within just a few weeks, I noticed my kids were doing, I mean, they were thriving. They were happier and healthier and sleeping better and just trying all these new movements and in time I started to learn that when you let kids play outside, it helps their brains function better. So it helps their cognition and it helps their emotional state. It helps them physically. Here's this thing that's, for the most part, it's very low cost and you just get so much out of it, the full span of ages. And so we lived that for about 2 years. And then we were not running into any other kids anywhere,
yeah.
and we're in this Metro Detroit area in Michigan. it's fairly populated and there's lots of park systems and trails and things. And there, I mean, when I say never, it was not one other child. And so I just thought this has been so impactful for me as a mom. Like I got brought out of the depths of despair to to thriving in one 4-hour time span. I thought, well, I'm going to write about it. And I called it 1000 Hours Outside because I had read a book by Dr. Scott Sampson. It's called How to Raise a Wild Child. And he quotes a statistic in there from the National Wildlife Federation that says on average, kids get to play freely outside for 4 to 7 minutes a day. That's how much time they're getting outside is 4 to 7 minutes a day, but 4 to 7 hours on screens. And so there's just this big imbalance for children between the virtual and the real. And so we were getting outside about 18 to 20 hours a week with that like Charlotte Mason goal. And I added it up because I just read that statistic, and it was 1,200 hours a year, which matched screen time for
Mm.
kids. And it made me think about how much life we would have missed,
Wow.
um,
Yeah.
if that
Yeah.
had all gone to screens. And so I thought, well, this is sort of this mission of balancing, bringing back balance. And we called it 1,000 Hours Outside because it's a little catchier, but it goes along it goes along the lines with there's a lot of research that's about this 3 hour ish outdoor play time for kids. It's kind of an ideal all the way through high school. So it hits a lot of things. It sort of hits the Charlotte Mason and it hits this current research and it matches screen time and we try and get it in over a year because certain seasons are harder than others. We're in Michigan, so it's, frigid, cold sometimes. And so 3 hours is not possible necessarily every day. And anyway, there's life, right? We got to go to the
Yeah.
orthodontist. So, um, the three that were originally under three are now all in braces. So, like
Yeah.
so it's just life. Like you can't maybe every single day get outside for 3 hours, but we're aiming to over the course of a year fill
So,
childhood with hands-on moments. And
so now that your older ones are older, are they still as interested in being outside as they were when they were little?
yeah, they're very interested. And a lot of people have that question. I think that movement and learning and being in nature works, from infancy through old age. Um, there is never a time when I don't think nature is inherently interesting. As our kids have gotten older, they've definitely sort of specialized in their interests. So like our oldest is 13. He's out shooting hoops with the basketball and he'll bring out a speaker and like all the neighbors can hear it. And he's got his speaker blasting and he's shooting hoops. And our daughter is 12. The next one, she likes to fish, you know. And then we have a 10-year-old. He's really interested in like rock hounding. He's into geology and we're near Lake Michigan and Lake Superior. So it's cool places to go look for rocks. And then our 8-year-old really likes to make flower arrangements. So it's like all of these different interests start to pop up. And I think, as they get older, and that's where the expense maybe might pop in. But, maybe your kid's interested in mountain biking or skateboarding or skiing or whatever the thing may be. And it's like something grabs their interest that they really like. And then, of course, if we ever invite friends anywhere, they're excited about a hike or, the same things that they've always liked. So a picnic, I mean, yeah, they haven't seemed to outgrow it. And I see other older kids out doing really cool things and I think we're kind of following that path.
So, talk to me a little bit about, I mean, obviously, I think most people will agree, yeah, it's great to get your kids outside. They, get energy out. But talk to me a little bit about some of the actual physiological and developmental benefits of being outside. I know I heard you talk about the benefits of sunshine and then also the complex movement piece.
Yeah, I mean, it is exceptional, Noel, how many benefits there are. And I think, as parents, we're trying to give our kid a leg up or we're trying to, help them to be as successful as they can be. And so what I've learned um over the past decade now and just researched a lot um and I read because it's hard to set this time aside. You want to fill it, but the research continually points toward um, unfilled outdoor play as just being phenomenally beneficial for kids. Okay, let's talk about cognitively. There's this statistic by in a book by Carla Hannaford. It's called Smart Moves, and the subtitle is Why Learning is Not All in Your Head. So we tend to think of learning as sitting, a desk, and a chalkboard and that type of thing. But she has a statistic that says
I bet you really want to know what that statistic says. We had a quick little issue with our sound, but I wanted to make sure you heard what she said. She says that elderly people who dance regularly
have a 76% less chance of developing dementia. And that like stopped me in my tracks because like everyone wants to avoid dementia,
Right.
right? I mean, everyone. And so to have a 76% less chance is massive. And it's no pill. You just have to dance. And dancing is fun, And so the point is, and what she covers a lot in her book and other books have too, is that as our as we incorporate complex movements into our lives, and so this is what kids do naturally, right? They learn to crawl, and then they pull up and they walk, and then they're running, then they're skipping, then they're jumping rope, then they're biking, then they're swimming. They're doing all of these complex things. They're climbing up on a log, then they're climbing up and they're jumping off, and they're climbing up higher, and all of these things that kids do, even casting a fishing pole or shooting hoops, all of those things, those are complex movements. And so as we engage in increasingly harder complex movements, um, it enhances and protects the way our brain functions. It myelinates, it makes the the neural pathways, it makes it so they're faster, these like faster highways. So it's like your brain becomes this faster computer, and that helps with everything a child wants to learn. That's going to help because their brain is functioning more optimally. And um and so cognitively, I mean, that's a huge deal. It's just a better functioning brain, and that's a lifelong benefit, and that's something that we can do continually through life. And then, you know, uh, academically as well, when kids are running around outside, it helps their eyesight because their eyes are having to track together. Every time they're running and jumping and leaping or crawling, all those type of things, and the terrain is not flat, like how it would be indoors. Their eyes are having to work together, and so that helps them with reading. It helps their core strength, so it helps them with their writing posture. Writing involves your shoulder all the way down to your fingers. And your core to be able to sit at a desk. And a lot of kids are falling out of their desks these days. So, it's also preparing kids. The outdoor movement is preparing their bodies for things like seat work. And then it's making the seat work easier and just learning of everything. It's like, I don't know, our daughter picked up guitar this past summer. She's 12, and it's just been no problem for her. She can just play it. And I think I'm starting to see as my kids get older, the ease with which they learn things, and a lot of that stems back toward outside play.
Yeah, and I hear people because we kind of loosely unschool, and we've focused on a lot of just play-based learning. I mean, my oldest is 8, so our kids are still pretty young. But
Mhm.
there's always these questions of, aren't your kids going to be behind if they're just outside playing all the time? And I feel like what you just said just completely blows that out of the water.
Yes, they're gonna be ahead. They're gonna be ahead because they're outside playing all the time. And we don't care about that. I mean, it's not about ranking. There is no competition. But, I think if we wanna give our kids the best shot, their childhood has to include a lot of movement. So there's this, sense. So, I learned in school about our 5 senses, and maybe you learned in your homeschool, I don't know, like touch, smell, taste. It's all pretty intuitive. I remember even doing worksheets on it and thinking this is a waste of my time. But you learn about the 5 senses, and then since becoming a mom, I've learned that there's actually 12 senses, and one of them is the vestibular sense. So the vestibular sense comes from like the path to your brain. There's like this pathway to your brain, and you activate the vestibular sense by getting your head out of an upright position. So I think that's super fascinating because it's like, well, what do kids do? Naturally, they get their heads out of an upright position. They roll and they tumble and they cartwheel. Just think about all the things that kids do. They swing and throw their heads back. And that vestibular sense, it activates the brain. And so, this is why kids tip their chairs back in a classroom, or this is why they move. They're trying to turn their brains on. And so this vestibular sense is the cornerstone sense. And it makes it so that kids can interpret from the environment all of these other things as well. And if this cornerstone sense is not fully developed, it makes all the rest of the learning harder. Just even that kind of stuff. It's really a miracle that what kids naturally want to do is what helps them develop in the most rapid and numerous ways. But it is counterintuitive. And I agree with what you say. A lot of people look at it as frivolous or just getting their energy out, as opposed to being this foundational element for the rest of their lives.
Absolutely. So touch on a little bit the benefits of sunshine, because I went to one of your workshops on that and that was super cool. I learned so much in that workshop.
Oh, yeah, that was cool. That hardly anybody came to that one. Remember? It was like a huge room. There was like 6 people in there. So, what's interesting, Noelle, is that, you would think that there's this finite amount of benefits to getting outside, and yet I continue to learn more. I mean, the list is so lengthy. So this is a newer one for me within the past 2 years, is literally the benefit of sunlight exposure. So this isn't even necessarily going on a hike or doing some, cool nature thing. This is about literally stepping out your front door or sitting on a porch and reading a book or something. But that sunlight, a full spectrum sunlight, does all sorts of things for our health, and especially if we expose ourselves to morning sunlight, that guides our body through the day, and that it helps to reset our body clock, and that there's like 100 different bodily systems that are dependent on this day and night cycle. And so often our bodies don't even know where they're at on the day and night cycle because we're not getting outside. And even that the colors of the day are meant to guide our bodies, that the dawn in the morning, it wakes us up, it's a new day, it's bright light, and then you just have this high energy throughout noon, throughout this, midday, and then things start to darken, and it's purple, and all these colors are meant to guide our bodies. And I think we're missing a lot of that because we're indoors. And so what I learned is that there's a certain lux, which is the strength of light that your body needs to be exposed to in order to wake up your brain and wake up, those systems. And you just don't get it inside. It might be, I can't remember the exact numbers, but let's say it's 120 lux inside, but you really need 5,000. And, even if you go outside on a cloudy day, you're getting 5,000, 9,000. It's exposing your eyes and your skin to that bright light, and it's helping your mood. I mean, there's so many things about it that it helps. And so it's just, for me, it's just another motivator on why we should get outside. It helps with your immune system. And I don't know, that list alone is so lengthy of just what simple sunlight exposure does for your health and for your mood.
Yeah, and this is not just helping our kids, it's helping us too, because all of these benefits affect us as well as adults.
Yeah, what a miracle, right, Noelle? It's like, what else is there like that?
So I want to touch on something like, what is your background? Because I get the feeling that a lot of this, because you like homeschooled yourself as an adult. Am I right on that?
Yeah, it's just been 10 years of learning. So isn't that cool?
I love that, because that's something I really, want to teach people on this podcast is, I mean, that's how I started my business. That's how I, learned about herbalism and different herbal blends and how to make different products. I just started researching it, and I just
Wow.
want to push that idea so much that we can learn anything. We can figure anything out if we just ask questions and research and start poking around. There are so many resources out there. And that's like a huge thing I want to teach my kids. Just ask questions. And that's one of that's a Charlotte Mason concept too, is being outside and just creating wonder and asking questions. Why do you think this does this? Or why is that shaped that way? Or why is this that color? And it's not just for our kids, it's for us too.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point, Noelle, because interestingly, when our oldest was 8, I had a sort of a shift where I had been reading John Holt, which is one of my favorite authors. I feel like most influential probably is John Holt. He was talking about kids. He said something like kids need a chance to see a job well done, like and from start to finish. So like they need to see the process of making a table or these different things. Like he was saying that kids are so far removed from the process of completing something or making it, making a new herbal concoction or these things that you're talking about. And so he's talking about that. And he says, if you have no skills, to show your kids, then learn something. That's, he says, learn,
Yeah.
which I think is really, I thought was a funny statement, like in a book that's pretty serious. Like he says, if you have no skills. So, there's people that we don't really have anything to show our kids or, it's like learn something, like, and let them see you learning. And John
Yeah.
Taylor Gatto has some really cool books too. And he actually was in the public school system, like teacher of the year, but really advocates for like child-led education. And he was like sourcing high school students to all these different internships. And so it changed my perspective on parenting and homeschooling as like a director as opposed to modeling and having this space where I can allow my kids to be a part of it, so that they can see what's going on in the real world of work. And
Yeah.
how do you make a product and take it to market, and how do you advertise it, and how do you enhance it, and all of these different things. And so I think you and I are on the same path there, that my kids get so much. And for me, I actually never really dreamed that the opportunities would open up like they have. So, for example, our kids got to be on the news. The local news came, and they each got to put on a microphone and do an interview. And what a cool experience that I would have never imagined that they would get to do that. And then they talked about it afterwards. It was harder than I thought, and all these different experiences. So I think as parents, when we are learning, when we are pushing forward ourselves, it models, but then it also opens up cool opportunities, I think, for our children.
Yes, we are there big time right now. We just bought 37 acres and 16 cows.
Oh,
And
how cool.
I
How
do not have
cool.
any background in farming of any type. So we are like learning on the job, and the kids are doing it with us. We're figuring out what different types of hay they eat and how there's different protein levels in the different grass. And we have a pregnant cow
Wow.
right now. So we're going to have to figure out what to do when she's ready to deliver. And we're, doing chickens and figuring out what kind of feed. There's so many new, different things that we're having to figure out and the kids are part of. And we don't have a house there yet. Right now it's just a cow pasture, but my husband has taken the kids out to camp a couple of nights. And he just was mentioning to me the other day, he's like, they didn't ask to be on the screen one time. They,
Wow.
they just played nonstop. They ran around, they fished, they, fell and scraped their knee. And he said, we have an issue in our house where, we've got two boys, they're 2 years apart. They're just constantly fighting and poking at each other. And he's like, I noticed, as they were like going through the woods, they were like helping each other, and it kind of bonded them
Mm.
together. Instead of just trying to find ways to occupy themselves that involves irritating each other, they really kind of became partners. And it's just been so beneficial for our family in ways that we never expected. It's a crazy adventure right now.
Oh, it sounds like it. But how neat. And I think that someday then you can pass off what you've learned in terms of resilience and persistence and bravery. You can pass that off, but then they're also living it, so and that will open up doors for them. Like you said, they're getting to camp out there, and those are the things that you don't really ever know when you step forward into doing something new, and that makes life kind of exciting.
It does. It does. The other thing I'm really excited for them to learn is about our food and our food processes,
Hmm.
because we're raising cattle, and so they understand, that these animals are going to be food one day. And, we don't have dairy cows yet, but eventually we'll have dairy cows, and they're going to see that whole process. And, we'll have eggs, and we'll be growing our own vegetables, and they will be getting their hands in the ground and being a part of this process. I feel like that's going to give them so much ownership. And even if you don't have 37 acres, there is a lot of like food growing you can do in pots on your back porch. There's so much you can
Sure.
do to just teach kids, like, hey, we don't walk into a store and, buy a box. Like, that's not where food comes from. Like, there are a lot of pieces of information, I feel like folk, you know
Yeah.
uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Like jobs and tasks and skills that kids just have no idea about. They don't understand the process of how that food ended up on their plate. They're so far removed from it. And I think there's a lot of things in our culture that, because of being on screens and just being kind of fed that information, and kids not having to get their hands in and actually do these things, or seeing it done, either
Right.
what from a family member or a grandparent, even if it wasn't them doing it, they saw it done and they understood how it worked. Even, with things as much as, I had a home birth with my last baby. We had birth center births with the others, but they were there. All my kids were right there, and they saw how a baby comes into the world. That's normal for them. They
Yeah.
understand that it's not this misunderstood thing that happens, far away, where we don't, and then the baby shows up all clean and happy. Like, they actually
Right.
saw the whole
Or not
process.
happy. I feel like mine were always not very happy. Yeah,
But I
sure. And
did.
I think that's what that John Holt was talking about, which was that, we're far removed from life and the processes of life, and um, and that we do our kids such a service when we give them a front row seat and invite them in. I even had I was at a conference in Ohio, and we met this author SD Smith, who writes these Green Ember books that our kids really like. And so we met him in person, and then he was on our podcast. And so I got to include my son. He's 10, and um, he got to sit in and ask some questions, and just there we go. He's a part of what's going on in the real world, and you never know how those experiences are going to affect them. They tend to be multidisciplinary, crossing many subjects, not just in a box, and they tend to be multi-age, and there's an astounding amount of benefits from these simple things.
Yeah. I also think it's super important for kids to see their mothers, to see women doing interesting things and, bettering themselves and growing and always changing and learning new things. I think it's so important that they understand, especially for our boys, but also modeling that for our girls, that especially, for homeschooling moms, I'm sort of like semi stay at home. I work 2 days a week, and the rest of the time I'm home. And if they just see me constantly serving them and following them around, that's good. That's modeling for them service. But then I also want them to see, hey, I'm a human being too. I'm an adult woman and I do interesting things, to
Yeah,
model that for them, that that's good and healthy and beneficial.
right. That growth is exciting, and that we can grow, all the way through our life, and learning is exciting, and trying new things, and yeah, I totally
Yeah.
am on the same page as you.
So you've already mentioned a bunch of books that I've already read and bought a whole bunch of, but are there any other just must have resources that you would recommend?
Okay, my top 5 books are Balanced and Barefoot by Angela Hanscom. Um, and that book is an easy read and just like stuffed full of information. Angela Hanscom is a pediatric occupational therapist. And so she's seeing like this front line of decline of skills in children, and the therapy services are, you have to wait a year. And so, she says you just got to get your kids out and play. And she gives some pretty big requirements, hours and hours a day, all the way through teenage years. Not all of it has to be outside, but she says ideally. And so it's her books are filled with information about the why. And so that helps me keep it in the forefront of my mind, when I'm tempted to fill in all the time, because I think that there is a big temptation to do that. So her book is called Balanced and Barefoot: How Unrestricted Outdoor Play Makes for Strong, confident and capable children. Like these subtitles are amazing, you know. And then Smart Moves is a similar book, Why Learning is Not All in Your Head. That one's by Carla Hannaford. She's also a pediatric occupational therapist. And her book is fascinating. I love Free to Learn by Peter Gray. Um, and that one is just about uh, the power of simple play. He talks a lot about the social components there. That the subtitle for that one is Why Unleashing the Instinct to Play Will Make Our Children Happier, More Self-Reliant, and Better Students for Life.
These are
So
like the
what a
longest
title.
subtitles I've ever heard.
I mean, but isn't that good? Why
So good.
unleashing the instinct to play, like they already want to play. It will make them happier, more self-reliant, and better students for life. So I love that one. I like There's No Such Thing as Bad Weather by Linda McGurk. If you live in a place that's really cold in the winter, really hot in the summer, that's a really good one. And then John Holt, Learning All the Time, is a 90-page, it's a short one, but it's something like how young children learn to read, write, and count or something like that all on their own. It's pretty fascinating. John Holt, Learning
Wow.
All the Time.
Wow.
All these great subtitles, and
Yeah.
that's a short read. It says how small children begin to read, write, count, and investigate the world without being taught. It's a
That's so
fantastic
cool.
book. So
I love that.
those are my top. Was that five? I think that was five.
And
Those are my top.
also Last Child in the Woods is
Yeah. I
such a
mean,
good
there's
one.
so many good ones, but yeah, that one by Richard Louv is really good. Glow
Yeah.
Kids is really good by Nicholas Carderas. That's about screen addiction, and he sort of gets into the background of screens and like for example, one of the things he has in his book is that video game makers, they test their video games so that it drives your blood pressure up to 180 over 130 within, X amount of minutes. And if it doesn't do that, they're back to the drawing board. So it's just
Wow.
this overstimulation, and it's designed to be that way. And so that's also a really interesting book, kind of down a little bit of a different path, but um, helps you
Yeah.
understand a little bit more the background of what's going on with tech, and obviously it's a tech heavy time. So
Yeah. And I will link all
um,
these in the show notes so everyone can access those.
there's a lot of good ones out there, I tell you.
So give me
And
like
oh,
three
good.
things for somebody that is like just getting started on this, and let's talk to you about like people whose kids go to school, because I know not all of our listeners will have homeschool kids. What would you say the top three like let's get started tips would be?
I think you have to set time aside for it, and I think that is the hardest part, which is that our lives are full, and there's a lot of pressure to go, do. And so I guess it's twofold. I guess it's having the knowledge that you're going to gain more by pulling back and doing a little less through nature time. So, if you have that foundation, then your first step is really you got to block off a chunk. You got to block off a space. So it's a Saturday morning, it's a Tuesday night hike after dinner with a flashlight. If you're homeschooling, maybe it's pulling back on the curriculum a little bit, which I think is hard. I think we have to be willing to give some of that up. If give
Yes.
up a little bit of that control, give up a little bit of that, I feel good when I check the boxes and sort of succumb to the unknown. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think first step is finding space and sort of whatever your life looks like. And people have different capacities in terms of how much time is theirs to make that choice from. If you've got a single mom, you got a single dad, like you said, you've got dual working parents, kids at school, you've got X amount of kids, you got one kid. I mean, everybody's situation is different, but we all have some expendable time, and that looks different from family to family. So, it's about picking a spot to circle and leave blank, basically. And
Yeah.
then I think, finding a friend who will adventure with you is a top a top priority. It's not a necessity, but it makes everything easier, a little bit safer. Our kids are reluctant to go outside unless there's friends, and if there's friends, then they're thrilled, and that's all they want to do. So, friendship is a really big thing, and then I think hikes are a great starting point. Half-mile hike, a mile hike. There's a start point and end point. There's a common goal, and you just take it at the child's pace and see what's interesting and climb on things and, look around. And it's movement, it's complex movement because the terrain is varied. And it's sort of an easy entry point. If there's some sort of a walk, even a walk around the neighborhood, or some sort of a beginning and end destination is a good spot to start.
Yeah, that's so helpful. Well, this has been amazing. It's gone by really fast, but if you look at the testimonials on your social media, I can see or even read the comment sections on your posts. So many lives have been changed by what you're doing, and you should be really proud of this work. It's really,
Uh,
really cool.
yeah, it's pretty wild. People laughed at it for a very long time, years, actually. So it's really neat to see the turn. It's all it was is me sharing my life. It worked for us, and
Yeah.
I think as people have tried it and find that it works for them as well, and sort of really makes their years full and beautiful, and also beneficial for development. It started to kind of catch on.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Naturally Noelle Show, empowering you to live a more natural life, one step at a time.